Well, it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. David Sherwood. Growing up, David Sherwood had always been interested in health and nutrition. Over time, he became interested in sustainable agriculture and organic gardening with the intent to optimize the nutritional value of homegrown food. He spent a lot of extra time at universities. He has a PhD in molecular biology, studying everything under the sun from geology to plant physiology and biotechnology and other related topics. Now, as the founder of Sherwood Pet Health, he's learning firsthand how to scale a business using principles as diverse as Jungian analytical psychology, corporate structure, marketing, and more. He's always seeking to learn more and loves a great discussion, so please welcome David Sherwood.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Well, having started a pet food business, got to show that picture of when I was a kid with my first pet rabbit, right? In this discussion, I don't want to just be talking at you. Let's get a real discussion going on. Raise your hands, let's ask questions. I don't have to get through this whole thing. I've got three main topics I kind of want to cover to help you. Now that I've gotten this far, there's things that I wish I had known. And so we'll be sharing these. But a little brief history of my background is like, after high school, I had no plans for college, okay? I was working dead-end jobs, mowing lawns, washing dishes, car wash detailer, and all that kind of stuff. And then I entered the community college by age 21, so I was kind of a later bloomer. And I started off with psychology. And I got this picture. This is like, a lot of these are AI-generated pictures that I made, but there's so many pathways. And so I started with psychology, but then I transferred, and that was like College of Southern Idaho in Twin Falls, and I transferred up to Spokane, Washington, to a university. And my original intent there was becoming like a high school science teacher. But then I just got so interested in the biology, I just kept going and got a bachelor's of science degree, and then transferred to Utah State University up in Logan and did a combined master's and doctoral stuff. But I also went to one of these elevator pitches the beginning of my grad school years and won a competition. And so we launched Sherwood Pet Health, which is a pet food company. So the big question that I see people usually have with entrepreneurship is they think that it's all about the next best thing. Right? You have a great idea or you hear a great idea and you're like, that's a moneymaker. But that's not the answer. That's really what it's not about. It's about the team. Who do you have on your bus? Right? It's the entire psychological profile of everybody, their interests and motivations are, and their experience and their history and all that kind of driving. And so we're going to talk a bit about this and how it affects three main things in your business that can kill your business. And you should know this from the launch so that you can plan for what you strategize. Normally, people don't just do their own business all by themselves. They'll team up with somebody. So you got to understand, well, who is this other person you're teaming up with, or multiple people, or family members, or whoever it is, and what are their strengths? So we're going to address these three main things that could kill your business or stop it from getting launched or destroy it down the road. Confusion, and we solve confusion with an organization hierarchy, and you want to have that mapped out in the beginning. There's like a slicing pie method. There's all kinds of things that'll teach you how to do that. There's also friction, and most people don't notice the friction in the early days because of the excitement, but it's bound to happen within a short period of time or within the first few years of your business. And that's based on putting the right people in the right places, understanding what your strengths are and what your blind spots are. And it's interesting, Jungian analytical psychology points out that your blind spot you tend to crave, so you think you're good at it, but you're terrible, okay? But you also have strengths, and we can discuss those a bit. And then underperformance. When you actually have a bootstrapped functioning start of a business, you've got to have these meetings where everyone's talking because that helps cover the blind spots of the business. So to focus on confusion first, and I know this slide has a lot of text. Most of our slides are just cool pictures, so don't stress, okay? But just to point out that you've seen this corporate structure before. You've got executives and directors and managers, supervisors, coordinators, and frontline workers, right? These frontline workers could be doctors. They could be PhD engineers. They could be laborers in your restaurant. This is where all the magic really happens, right? And all of this is to support these people here. And there's a purpose for every layer. So a lot of people look at, and there's some interesting thing. There's really abstract thinking people. They tend to perform better up here and perform worse down here. And vice versa. Concrete thinking people, they like to be working. They like to be involved right in the middle of what's going on. And they hate to daydream about, well, what should we do? Where do we go? So it's an interesting nuance you could consider. Are you kind of this abstract dreamer, or are you really in the present, working on stuff? That'll help you identify where you'll perform better and who you need to bring on your team so that you can have a well-balanced team, right? So the triangle is this pyramid that a lot of people think, well, these executives are at the top and they're, it's just that nuance there. But really, the pyramid is flipped upside down because the executives should be down here supporting all the workers up the top doing the bulk of the work. And that's how you're supposed to look at that. So that organization hierarchy, anybody have questions on it? You'd like to go into more detail? Because I know it's a lot to cover, and I'm sure you'll cover this in later classes, but you've got to keep that in mind when you're bootstrapping a business. There are going to be people who are going to gravitate towards being at that top of the pyramid, and you need to remind them, you got to support me and help me figure out what I'm doing when I'm up here at the bottom of the pyramid at the top, right? Working.
Yeah, David, could you just give us an example of how this currently functions in your business? Kind of how many employees you have and what the structure is right now?
Sure. So right now, we're a sub $2 million company. We're like right at that peak, and growing. And so we've got 6 full-time workers, and most of them are actually doing stuff. I often get in the line and do stuff too, but I'm an abstract thinker. And so what I've realized is that I can't be spending my time on the front lines making sure everything's running smooth. I need to take time away every day and start to think and to study books or strategize and plan. And that's how I'm going to serve my company best based on my personality type, right? And then there's certain people, like I was going to get into Disney characters and show personality types and Disney characters, but this coordinator right here, that is Snow White. Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, she'll like whistle while you work and she's sweeping the broom. She'll be really good at getting everybody that she's managing to work and do what they should, right? That's how she functions. Somebody who's like an executive and like right below the CEO, that would be the COO, the Chief Operations Officer, who's ready for action and making sure everybody's coordinated. That would be Buzz Lightyear. He's an ENTJ, as the young analytical psychology is. And he will like readily see what's going on and know where to go next. And the military used Buzz Lightyear style personality types during World War II so that they could strategize and win the war. And they purposely found those people and stuck them in those positions, and we won the war through strategy, right? So everybody's got their strength, but Buzz Lightyear, you can tell that he's a little bit insensible. If he doesn't have all the options in front of him, he'll make some bad decisions. And so you've got to have people around Buzz Lightyear giving him all the information so that he can read through and then readily see where to laser focus. So everybody's different. Everybody has strengths, weaknesses, and there's always trade-offs. Does that answer your question there? Yeah, thanks. Okay. So friction. This gets a little more into personality stuff, and this is where we've had problems in our company. When we first started, we didn't know any of this kind of stuff, and we hired people, and they were loyal, great people that stuck around for a long time and moved with our company from Logan down to here. But even though they're great people, I had them in the wrong spot and didn't know it and just thought they're filling the role. And when you start getting into it and start deciphering all the problems, you'll start to recognize that like your company is a barrel full of apples. One bad apple can spoil the whole thing. And even if they're a good person, if they're just in the wrong place, they still can start to rot the company from inside out and not even realize it. It's a huge issue. And so if you go to school for a business degree, you should also learn a psychology degree too, but not, it's just the way it is. This is a really simple way to look at putting the right person in the right spot. And this is a book that my consultant had me read a little while ago, The 6 Types of Working Geniuses. And each of these gears W stands for wonder, they represent basically the 6 steps of any work project you're gonna do. So if you're gonna launch a company and you're gonna do like some kind of a service thing, you gotta have somebody come up with the idea, to wonder, well, why isn't this better in our society today? We should fix that, right? And they'll start to bring up these questions you might not have ever thought of. And then the next person is going to say, well, now that you've brought that up, we could do it this way or this way or this way. And they'll come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, but they might not make sense. But one of them will be a genius idea, and they won't know it. And so then you'd work with them. So you'd have somebody who discerns, now that's the right idea, right? That person might not come up with the ideas, but they'll readily recognize whether or not it's a good idea to take into business. And then the next thing is you'll start to put a team together, and you need somebody to work with all these people. This is one that I suck at. And that's Snow White is great at this, right? And then you'll need to have people who just love to work. They're like, tell me what should I do? I want to help out. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. And they'll be those enablers. And then there's people who have tenacity who just want to finish it. So here's the concept of there are 6 steps that you have to go through with any new project you create. And they've identified that everybody in this room will have 2 that they're really good at, that they have endless energy just to do. And you want to find somebody like that on your team to fill those holes. Then there'll be 2 things that person is very competent at doing, but it wears them out. And you might find that you're burdened with certain things that you can handle and you can do, but it's going to wear you out and you're going to get burned out on the business. And then there's 2 things in here that are going to be so frustrating for you, you're going to hate it. And if you had that chore in your business as a team, you're just not going to be plugged in. You'll check out. So being aware that everybody's like that, whoever you bring on your team, you've got to help identify, well, which 2 are they good at? Which 2 should I never have them do? So here's a rhetorical question. How many people do you need on your team to bootstrap a business? Have any guesses? Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's like that many. And you think, well, just me and my partner, we'll launch this thing. You're going to have blind spots and holes that you're not going to think about. You do need 4 to 6 people. Good answer. Okay, so yeah, I'm just pointing out if you're missing one thing or another, you're going to break down the chain and you're going to wonder why your business can't get launched. Okay? The Hail Mary. So this happens in our business where one of these components is missing and somebody's got to pick up that ball and they'll notice it laying there. And we'll talk about this more later with swim lanes. And somebody's got to pick it up and then get that ball into the end zone. And it's like miraculous sometimes that it actually even occurs. And you've got to strategize and think more through the whole process and make sure you have every one of these people doing stuff, right? Okay, so the swim lanes, Olympic swimming pool. You guys ever race or swam and did races and stuff? You're supposed to stay in your own lane, right? If you cross into someone else's lane, you start causing problems. This happens all the time in a business where you've got the wrong person in the wrong spot. We've had somebody who is a fantastic worker, loves to work, loves to put in effort, but he sees all the things that are going on and he aspires to leadership even though he's just a packaging person, and he starts to cause problems. And his good heart, trying to do good effort, started causing everybody else to check out, right? Because they had him in the wrong spot. And that'll happen in your businesses. So the swim lanes, one way we solve this is, and this is an actual swim lane we put together, we just put some butcher paper on the wall and drew some lines and used sticky notes and started thinking about a particular process that we do. And we thought, well, what are all the steps? And we just put them in a single row. And then we thought, well, who should be doing that step? And then you like move it up or down for different persons. You know, these are the 4 jobs, 4 people, and these are the steps that they do. And so there's a clear handoff from here to this person, and then this person hands it off back to this person, and then this person hands it to that person. So there's distinct handoffs, and we've got the right people doing the right thing, and nothing ever gets dropped or missed or forgotten. Swim lanes, kind of a cool concept. That is a fun thing to do when you're bootstrapping a business, is to strategize and plan out the swim lanes. Okay. So do you guys want to cover these gears that we showed on the widget? Because I've got them all listed here if you want to cover any of these widgets. Anyone you'd like to go to first as you think about it? What are some strengths you might have? And we can read up more on them. Sure. So the natural gift of rallying, inspiring, and organizing others to take action. Okay. I'm terrible with this. I just kind of expect people to do it and pick up the ball. And that's why I hired Snow White to go onto the floor, and come in, and they feel great. They find fulfillment in their life when they're doing this kind of thing, We can get into the analytical psychology side of things more if you want, where that's this personality type here. They are fantastic at galvanizing, right? They're also great at supporting work. And so if you have a business, your middle management will be like this kind of a personality type is a great option to choose. You also have to verify that they've got the background, the skill set, the interest, and all these other things. But it's just an extra tool you can add in when you're evaluating somebody to hire. And they will then be able to do these things really good. Yeah, Snow White loves to do the work, but they're also great at recognizing when others aren't doing their work, and they'll critically say, hey, you should be doing this. And they just naturally do that. Have you guys ever seen the TV series The Office? Raise your hands if you've seen The Office. Okay. The boss, the bumbling idiot, what was his name? Yeah, that's his personality type in this show. See, he pretends to be this. Disney and TV productions, they all use Jungian analytical psychology, these 16 personality types, to make sure that their characters are playing within their proper role so that the show makes sense and you can tell it's real, it's more real, right? So when you're watching shows, you'll see that. But what does Michael Scott do that makes this happen? Does he actually do any real work or any production? Not really. But he sure does a really good job at conveying value. So he doesn't produce value, he conveys value. So he will then accidentally reveal corporate's intentions, right? And so he'll convey value down the chain. And then he'll accidentally say, so-and-so is doing this, to corporate. So he'll convey value upwards and nobody gets mad at him, right? Awesome, awesome person to have in that role of middle management. And he goes around, it's all about the party, the brownie parties or the birthday parties, and reminding everybody of the birthday party. Oh, and you should get your work done so that we can have that party, right? That's the whole focus in his life is like that. It's a great example of Snow White functioning in a business. And what's interesting is Google, years ago, fired all those middle management people thinking that they're a waste of time. They're like, they're not producing anything. Why do we have them here? It's hitting the bottom, the bottom line. And the next week when they had meetings, all the engineers, these guys, were passing up their detailed reports up to corporate, and they're looking at this like, this is too much for us to read. We don't know what this means. There's way too much data here. What was happening is Snow White, right here, was boiling down and simplifying the engineer's reports into what really mattered, what was practical, and handed it up the line. So what Google had to do is they had to rehire all of these people, get them back in their jobs so that their whole business didn't come crumbling down, right? They convey value, super important. All of these different positions you see in the triangle of the corporate ladder is actually everybody fitting in the right spot and making the whole business work really well together. So, any other ones we want to cover? Michael Scott was a great one, yeah? Tenacity, yeah. So tenacity is something that I'm good at, but it wears me out. And the gift of pushing projects or tasks to completion to achieve results. It's not about getting it done, it's about achieving the results. And some people are fantastic at driving the ball clear to the end zone. Whereas others will be like just supporting, getting the ball down the field. There'll be one person who's really focused on, it's got to get in the end zone, right? So tenacity, the ISTJ, these people are fantastic in a business. They're very ambitious. They're very dutiful. They've got a fantastic memory. They are what this whole school system is built around, is this type of personality type, where they, I've got two of these guys in my business, and they are super great at being accurate and paying attention to the process and the rationale and researching and making sure the system's there. But what happens if you have more than 20% of your business with these people is you get a Toys R Us story. So the history of Toys R Us, if you guys are probably too young for this, but it was a booming toy store in the industry, and everybody would go shopping there. But it got taken over by too many ISTJs that then put up so much bureaucracy and red tape everywhere that the whole company was playing it safe and not taking risks. And because it wasn't taking risks, it wasn't keeping up with the times, and the company went bankrupt, right? So they're focused on results and on getting there, but they also have these weaknesses and blind spots. So the company wasn't well-rounded. They didn't have a diversity of opinions in their meetings. They had one opinion, and that's why Toys R Us went down. So that's really scary. If you think about you being the CEO and you think your opinion's right, you got to realize you have to have a well-rounded perspective, or you're going to cause your own company to go down based on your own intellect when you think you're right. Kind of scary. Tenacity. Yeah, they love to finish the job, and it's all about being justified or almost satisfied that it's completed, right? And so they'll be driven to that, and they'll be at rest putting in the effort. Any other? Because these are great stories behind every one of these principles here, or these personality types or widgets. Yeah. Let's see if I can come up with or remember a story on enablement. So the natural gift of providing encouragement and assistance for an idea or project. So people who are good at enablement, there's quite a few personality types who are just fantastic at it. My wife is one of them, right? I get super frustrated with it. It's just, she's good at guiding her kids and supporting them to do stuff, and I get too caught up on we're not following the process, and I get frustrated with them, you know? That happens. So I recognize I need to hand off the ball, and I need to follow her in this particular thing. Or in a business, you got to realize that the work has to be done, and so you'll rely on these type of people to get that work done. So enablement is, they don't necessarily create the idea. They're not super creative, but man, they feel connected to others. They find fulfillment in stepping in and doing the work with them. And they're like, yeah, I like that idea. I can jump on board. I'll ride that bus, and we'll do this together, you know? And it's about consistency and stuff. How much more time do we have? I don't know. I've been watching my clock. Okay. Maybe some other time in the future, if you want to get into the cognitive functions and how the personality type works and why these things work, I've mapped that out too. But having the endless energy to be a supporter is fantastic, because some people wear out. Or me, like I'm an INTJ, it gets super frustrating. I can see something that I'm like, this is exciting, we should jump on this, and I want to finish it. But to jump on board with someone else's idea that I'm like, that's not going to work, I start to get frustrated. I have different ideas. I'm more of this abstract thinker that society doesn't get along with as easily because I'm not chill. Right. Yeah.
So enablement would be getting yourself on.
If you have both those in your mind, they are different. It is getting yourself on board and supporting someone in their pathway and their plan that they're trying to put together. But helping get others on board, you'll notice that that's galvanizing, and some people are good at both, and it just comes natural to them. And that's their strength. So if you're going to team up with a group of people in a bootstrap business, you'll say, I'm great at these things, but don't give me this task. Don't do that. And if you give me these tasks, I'm going to wear out. Let me do this where I'm just going to be great at it. And you won't have to worry about that part of your business. And you'll team up with someone else who is really good at these things, you know? Does that answer your question? Cool. Any others before we move on to the next thing? Invention. Are there any super creative people here that can't just stop creating ideas? That just rolls off their tongue, like, what if we did this? What if we did that? Nobody like that here. Yeah. I might just be talking too much. So, invention. So, this is a really cool thing how this works. If I had the cognitive stack, I could show you. But what invention is they are super aware of all the options and possibilities. And then they have this awesome memory where they see, well, there's this thing and this thing. Let's recreate it into a new combination, put it together. So that's what essentially Elon Musk has done, is he sees cars, gas engines. He sees electrical technology. Let's put them together, make electric cars. Or robots, or whatever else he's doing. He's taking pre-existing information, pre-existing technologies, and recombining them into something new that is awesome. He's got great inventive capability.
So what do you do when you have all these ideas but you struggle to turn them into reality?
That is exactly answered in the cognitive stack. So people who are really good at seeing all the possibilities are naturally really terrible at taking action. It just happens. It's just the way it is. What you need to do is pair up with somebody who can't create those ideas, but who's really good at taking action. They're opposites of each other. I was going to bring this up. It's called reflector functions in Jungian analytical psychology. And a reflector function is, the really easy one is like introverted sensing versus introverted intuition. They're both introverted functions. One is looking in the past in memory, and one's looking in the future. Somebody who's all the time looking in the future rarely thinks about the past, and vice versa. If they're always remembering what they've experienced, it's really hard for them or frustrating to think about what's happening in the future. So the same thing happens there with inventiveness, being really creative. You might also be really hyper aware of what others want, right? Those go hand in hand, being aware of what others want, being creative, it all goes together. But taking action is different. It's a very different function, and it's like the opposite side of the spectrum in your mind. So just pair up with somebody who's really good at taking action, because they're going to be very appreciative of the ideas that you have. They'll take action and get it going, and then you'll jump in and support them in whatever they're doing, right? So, yeah.
What do you think about if you're balancing your team like that, there is a tendency to sort of dislike the imposition of the other person. Like if you're not a person who can execute on the idea, and you have someone on your team who is, but they're sort of pushing you because you need to take the whole team, like how do you deal with that?
That is going to be natural conflict for sure. It really is. Back when we were talking about this corporate structure here, This is a very real thing that you have to deal with. People who are abstract thinkers, usually future-oriented, tend to not get along well with people who are very concrete thinking, who are super practical. But you have to have both in the business. Otherwise, you start to do, if you're biased in this way, you start to do a lot of impractical things and your business doesn't go anywhere, okay? If you are focused and balanced, biased towards this side of the spectrum, you're not going to be able to be aware of what's happening in the potential market space and what creative ideas you can come up with. So,
50-50, or does one side have to be dominant?
it's a tough question to answer. And there has to be buffers. So if you think about a bootstrap business, say you've got 4 to 6 people coming into a team and you all have different strengths, you've got to recognize. So I have this other business that I've started a few years ago, and there's a super creative person and there's a super practical person. And what they didn't know, which I didn't know this until just last year when I started learning all this stuff, is that super practical person kept expecting the creative person to take action on stuff. And he kept like, here, do this work, and it just wouldn't get done and they get frustrated with each other, right? But having this knowledge and understanding how this works, start to realize, oh, don't expect me to take action. You shouldn't do that. I'm going to be creative and come up with ideas for you, and then you need to take action, or we need to get more people on the team who just want to know what to do, and they'll be supporters, right? And so you have to put together a team. Like Toy Story has this whole band of people from Buzz Lightyear and Andy and everybody else, and they've got those characters spot on with Disney, and you'll start to recognize where certain people have really good strengths, and when they input it right at the right time, magic happens and the whole team moves forward.
So what about an individual person?
So if you're doing your own business,
Let's say both the abstract and concrete.
yeah,
Does that happen?
it does. Yeah, and there's if I had the diagram to show the analytical psychology, if you want to cover that another time, I'd be happy to. But yeah, some people can bounce back and forth, but they're not going to be super strong at either. People who are super strong at one are super weak at it. But if you can bounce back and forth between both, you're going to be kind of in that worry, insecure space, but you'll be able to be competent at both that'll wear you out. Does that answer the question better? Great questions. I really appreciate it. That is really focusing in on the nuance of how the stuff works. And it just so fascinating. I mean, I'll bounce back again. The 3 things that we need to fix in the business, all 3 of these have to do with people. And psychology is a big part of dealing with people. But not just dealing with them, but like helping everybody be in the right spot and to know when to use or when to listen to somebody and when not to listen to somebody. And helping them recognize, well, it's a good time to have you do this, but it's not good to apply it later on. What often happens in a business is they'll have this great idea, you'll assemble this team to get started, and then that person who came up with the idea keeps whiplashing the whole company back and forth because they have more ideas. And they don't stay consistent and get the ball to the end zone, right? So there's times when you shine on the football field and times when you don't. And you've got to allow the team to work in a coordinated way to achieve results. You've got to know when to give somebody the ball and when not to. Cool.
So, David, where would you suggest students go if they're interested in learning more about this and they're not that familiar with Jungian psychology?
There isn't really great resources. I don't know. In the university system, they don't really teach Jungian analytical psychology, right? So you'd have to look online, and then there's a lot of self-reported know-it-alls that think they know. But it's a combination of books and places that you'd have to read and look at. I've been trying to gather all of this diverse information and put it together so I can use it in my business and also teach people in the business how to use it. And I don't have a great answer for that, sorry. Let's skip ahead, and we're going to get to the 3rd component. So just backing up again, you can see when you have a system design and you think about all the steps, you can start to hand them off to different people, and that way when they're not crossing their swim lane, things get done properly and there's accountability there. The third one, we've got a few more minutes for this, underperformance. I think now that we've discussed all these things with these great questions here, that you're going to start to see how this all fits together in something so simple as a staff meeting. Another stupid AI image that looks weird, but you can become blinded by your pursuit of the next big sale and then miss the fact that your business is a sandcastle falling apart in different areas. So it's really typical for entrepreneurs to be building up one area of the sandcastle while the other side is degrading. And that's going to catch your business off guard. Okay? So this is a sheet that we use every week at a staff meeting, and we have one person, the COO, is assigned to fill this out. And these are the different areas of the business that you need to pay attention to. And your personality type might be only interested in 2 of them. And if you're the CEO running the business, your business is going to be blind to the other 4 or 5, right? So by paying attention to these things, we do what's called the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And every week we get everybody on staff to then point out, hey, we're having this problem in production, or this potential problem in production, or we've got this threat for compliance. We've got USDA inspection coming next week. We got to fix this thing, And you start having the staff meeting tell you all of these things. You fill out the whole chart. So then you can then look at it. Buzz Lightyear then looks at this chart and says, oh, we need to circle on this one, and this one. And then he'll have his 3 priorities, and he'll choose the top priority, and he'll be so ready to take action on fixing that one thing that when it's done, he'll be ready to default to number 2 and number 3. So every week, he's leveling up your business. And he's not blind to anything because he's gathered all the information from everybody on staff so that your sandcastle doesn't fall apart. I have this extra column in here that I threw in here just a couple weeks ago called entropy. And for you math nuts, it's like 1 is common. It's staying consistent, right? You're not leveling up, you're not degrading. So you would assign a 1 to any department that is, based on all the stuff in there. Seems to be okay, and you don't have to worry about it. And then anything that you were putting time or money or personnel or resources into, you could label it as a 1.1. It's starting to improve. We're building up that area of the sandcastle a little bit more. And then any areas, and you would have to say by default, most of the areas, because you haven't put attention into them that week or the week before, they're becoming a 0.9. They're starting to degrade. They're getting smaller, and the sandcastle's falling apart. And this was the biggest lesson that I've learned recently from my consultant. In my mind, I'm super aware of all the things that need to be done and all the consequences that occur, and I'm worried about it all the time. A lot of people are blind to one or the other, but some of us have that right in the middle of our mind where we're aware of both. And I'm always feeling like I need to take action on all the balls that are being dropped. I've got 100 spinning plates, and I have to keep them all spinning. And that just doesn't work. You don't actually get anything done that way. You do have to, as my consultant says, pick your pain. Choose which one of these things you're going to focus on and solve the pain for that one thing, recognizing that the rest of the entire sandcastle is going to have to suffer a little longer. So one of the principles we have in our business is we have an account set aside where a percentage of all revenue goes into this one account for fixing pain problems, for equipment upgrades or whatever it is we need to do, temporary projects. So there's money there so you can keep solving pains and leveling up and building your sandcastle faster than it falls apart. Because if you ever think it's going to stay consistent, you're lying to yourself, because markets shift, the world changes, everything's always in change and flux, and you always have to be working on building your sandcastle faster than it falls apart. And it's not about you doing all of this, it's about coordinating a team and building a system, and this is called scaling your business, building a system so that the widget is being taken care of in every department in the entire company. You've got an abstract thinker thinking about the issues that could happen with compliance a year or 3 years down the road, and you've got people working on the next step in the widget to make sure that that's getting taken care of. And then you're deploying money and resources to get it done. And so everything, you've got people focused on R&D. And so you have a whole R&D department where you've got a combination of people in the whole widget, all in the R&D department, doing research and development and carrying that ball clear to the end zone. So even if you are a small bootstrap company of 2 or 3 people, realize you got blind spots and that should terrify you. You should start to look for part-time people just to give advice. People love to give advice, right? Get different perspectives on things. Start to realize, well, what should I be aware of in my business? You know? But the other really cool thing is, not only are you picking your pain and what to solve, you're also picking your joy. Because as you start to offload, say, this part of the business to this widget team, you now don't have to worry about that anymore. They truly got it. You don't have to manage them. You don't have to worry about the ball being dropped. They've got it. You can rely on your team. And then you can choose, like, I want to go into the R&D department. I don't want to be CEO. I'm not that type of person. Let someone else deal with that, right? I'm going to have fun doing research. Cool? So that's the end of the presentation, but I hope that you get, are we out on time too? Okay. I hope you get the big picture that people, I could go all the way back to, I'll end on this bus picture. I wish I could go back faster. It's not about the next best thing. It's about the people on the bus and your team and making sure everybody's in the right place so that they find fulfillment and they can succeed where they're at and knowing where you're going to succeed and where you shouldn't be. So that's it. Yeah.